That's all right. That's all right. We'll give Pierce a break there. So you don't hear much from Ron Paul, but he's still very much in the presidential race. Earlier on CNN, our Carol Costello asked him why.
Well,
lost our sound there. Essentially, he was talking a little bit about how he wanted to influence the conversation for the Republican convention, how he wants to bring libertarian issues to the forefront, even if he is not the main guy. I want to bring in our political panel, Republican analyst Lenny McAllister and Democratic strategist Robert Zimmerman. So let's talk a little bit about Ron Paul, first of all. Do we think, Lenny, that he really, by carrying forward some delegates in the convention, that he's going to be able to change the discussion or the agenda?
He will be able to change the discussion, Susan, and it's not necessarily because he'll have these delegates. It's because he's been running out there as a presidential candidate for several cycles now, and he has a genuine following that hasn't gone anywhere. He has a following that is very much Tea Party. They were Tea Party before there was an actual Tea Party over these last 3 years. They will have a say-so. Now, the question is how much of a say-so, but people will listen to them. People will follow what they're saying, and they're going to have a plank in this platform somewhere. It's just a matter of how big of a plank and how big of a voice Ron Paul is going to have moving into the summer. Will he have much of one after the summer? Possibly not, but he will continue to have one within that strong but
Lenny,
small group that he has of supporters.
Go ahead, Robert. Do you think this is pretty smart politically that he's staying in the conversation? Perhaps he'll get a speaking role out of all of this?
Look, from my perspective, I'd pay for his airtime. I think it's important to remember just because he's a straight talker doesn't mean he's making any sense. And he's articulated positions that are just so extreme and so irresponsible and ignorant. For example, his giving Iran a pass on having nuclear weapons, and his other positions about the economy domestically, that ultimately he really not only hurts his own credibility, but given too big an audience, he can really pull the Republican Party off message and hurt the credibility that the Republican Party is trying to build.
Lenny, do you think that's true? Do you think that he really is kind of pulling them away from the main focus?
No, because if you look at the issues in regards to the national debt, the Ron Paul supporters were talking about this years ago before the Republicans or the Democrats were talking about this in the mainstream. They were the ones that initially bubbled this up into the conversation. They took hold of a lot of segments of the Tea Party element in 2009 and got this into a conversation to the point where we were discussing this full bore in 2011. This is something now that the president and Governor Romney both have to answer to, and you have to thank the Ron Paul supporters for a lot of this when it comes into the national conversation. It could be something that actually saves the country as a result.
Lenny, the reality is it's all well and good to talk about the national debt, but their solution is to dismantle the federal government. And that's where they're going to have a problem when they start talking about dismantling the Environmental Protection Agency or consumer protection or programs that benefit students or small businesses. That's where I think they have a real risk there. But the reality is, you may be right. He may fit into the Republican Party agenda because ultimately that convention is going to be like an anger management therapy with all the different competing temperaments there.
All right, let me turn here to Senator John McCain here. He is now criticizing President Obama, saying that he has been bragging about killing Osama bin Laden. Let's listen.
Well, I think one of the things, and I hope this isn't viewed in the wrong way, but, you know, heroes don't brag. Heroes don't brag, and his continuous bragging about taking out bin Laden, you know, most of the guys I know would say, you know, let somebody else talk about that.
Lenny, do you think that's fair? I mean, President Obama was before that mission, not Obama, sorry, President Bush was before that mission accomplished sign prematurely before the end of the Iraq War, and essentially everybody wants to talk about, highlight their accomplishments.
Yes, and to be fair, if you look at the McCain-Bush dynamic over the last 10 years, I'd have to imagine that Senator McCain wasn't too thrilled about mission accomplished either. I think there's something to be said about this, but at the same time, when you're running for the post of commander-in-chief, there are going to be instances where you have to show that you are an effective commander-in-chief. I personally have no problem with President Obama taking credit and showing that this is something that he did as commander-in-chief in 2011. The problem is moving forward. It is one accomplishment. We have to look at a record over the 4 years. We have to look at how he's dealt with Iran. We have to look at how he's been able to continue our relationship with Israel and how we move forward from there, in addition to the national economy here. If Republicans focus too much on foreign affairs, they're going to have a harder argument to make. They need President Obama from a political standpoint to not talk so much about foreign affairs and get back to the economy. That's where Obama's weakness is, and that's where Governor Romney needs to attack this president on if he wants to get elected in November.
Robert, I want to bring in the issue of Rick Santorum here. He was on Jay Leno last night explaining why it was that it was in the 13th paragraph of this endorsement of Mitt Romney, kind of buried the lead there, that he was eventually going to support him. Here's how he explained it.
I had some concerns, and I voiced some of the things that I thought were important for us if we were going to be successful in this general election, that he would, take the cudgel and run with it. And I felt comfortable after that meeting. And over the weekend, I worked on it, and we decided to put it out late at night so it would be sort of the first thing people would see in the morning.
Robert, do you buy it?
It was if he was so concerned about getting it out there as the first thing, remember he put the endorsement in the 13th paragraph. Let's be real. If Senator Santorum could have used a carrier pigeon, or if the telegram existed, he would have tried that tactic. This was the most haunting, halting type of endorsement I think I've ever seen from a serious presidential contender who didn't get the nomination. It was obviously he was very conflicted about it and gave it with great hesitation.
Does it make a difference, Lenny, that he was conflicted or he hesitated? I mean, ultimately, he got it.
It makes a difference in May. What the message is moving forward, though, is Governor Romney, you need to get fervent support from the conservative base, not just de facto support from the conservative base. And in order to do that, these are the things that you need to do. In that regard, it was a good move by Senator Santorum to make sure that there were certain things that were spelled out to basically give a roadmap to Governor Romney to say, listen, in the months that you'll need to fire up the conservative base to not just vote for you, but to get other people to vote for you, to convince independents, you need to do these things and speak to these issues in order to get us fired up to get you elected in November. In that regard, it's a good move. It may seem squishy now, but we're not worried about how it looks in May. We're worried about the results in November.
And you guys are, go ahead. Go ahead.
Suzanne, I was just say, Lenny's comments and Rick Santorum's email goes back to my original point. That Republican convention is going to be an anger management therapy session for the right wing.
No, it's not. No, it's not. They're angry at President Obama for what he's been doing over the last 4 years, and they're going to take that anger out at the ballot box in November. That's the only anger
angry
that's
at each other.
Robert.
Do you think that they'll be wearing sweater vests? There was a moment there on Leno where Santorum gave him the signature sweater vest. You think that's going to be a trend here, guys?
Oh, absolutely. Not only will they be wearing sweater vests, Newt Gingrich is getting the child labor to create the sweater vests.
Oh, geez, Lenny, you want to come back?
That was Newt's idea, not mine.
Oh, boy.
You know what? I'm not going to even get into that. President Obama has enough issues to worry about in regard to flip-flopping and backing away from things and staying away from North Carolina. As long as they're not wearing sweater vests in the middle of the summer in North Carolina and Florida, I think everybody will be okay.
All right, rough crowd there, rough crowd. All right, Lenny, Robert, good to see you both. Thank you.